Good evening. Looks like we are live. Welcome to the Tuesday night Raw Q&A with myself, Dr. Andi. We talk about, I don't know, can you hear Ruby? She's having a mild hissy fit. Well, come here and say hi. Come here and say hi. Come on, and say hi. That's Miss Ruby. She has a twin brother named Sam. He is not in here. We'll see how long this lasts before she gets kicked out. I hope everyone is having a wonderful Tuesday. And if there's anybody out there, let me know if you all can hear me. Woohoo, loud and clear. Thanks, Kyle. So Tuesday Night Raw, question Q&A. So all about your questions. We talk about all kinds of alternative stuff with our animals, including, and I don't think it's alternative. I think it's actually what should be going on. Raw feeding, species appropriate diet, barf, all that jazz. Here we go. Thank you. Great podcast with, she kind of got me out on one of my soapboxes. We talked a lot more about chiropractic on the Raw Dog Food Truth podcast with Dee Dee, CEO of Raw Dog Food and Company. And so, we talked about, I don't remember the specifics now, but talked about chiropractic. So, yes, I'm a certified animal chiropractor. I'm a doctor of chiropractic. So I am not a veterinarian. None of this is veterinary advice. Whatever we talk about. Go see your veterinarian, go educate yourselves. I've learned more things from my animals and my clients than anywhere else. And so a lot of everything is very anecdotal. So let's see. Sometimes I ramble on in the beginning, give everybody a little time to join. I had a question today about hip dysplasia. And does chiropractic help hip dysplasia? And I have two stories that I currently refer to, and they're actually still both clients of mine. What I call true hip dysplasia. True hip dysplasia is diagnosed between 8 months and 18 months. That's when puppies are looking painful, having trouble sitting, that cute sloppy sit that the Labradors do. Mostly Labradors, other dogs do it. But it's my chiropractic brain, it's not cute. Now, yes, we all are in conversation, if they're sitting there waiting for you to stop talking to the neighbor and they're sitting on their side and they're kind of and they're working on laying down and they're kind of bored, that's one thing. But if your puppy cannot sit straight, like the perfect sit with the knees all tucked in tight, if they cannot do that, will not offer that, you struggle to get them in that position, you may have an issue. I'm not saying it's hip dysplasia, but you may have an issue. And as a puppy, okay, you're talking to a chiropractor, right? I would go get adjusted first, because I think we've even talked about it here. Puppies play with their litter mates. They get caught on whatever they're playing with their litter mates in. Mom could have sat on them, and we get them adjusted. And then if you're still seeing it, then you have a conversation about maybe going to the vet. But that sloppy sitting all the time, they've always done that. It's not cute. It's not cute at all. If they can offer and you can get them into a perfect sit, that's that's what you want to cue as a sit. That's what you want to encourage, because the more you encourage that perfect sit, the more the proper muscles are going to build doing that sit. So a true hip dysplasia, I use that word true because later in life, I get the same thing at, 10, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, it must be the hips, must be hip dysplasia. Generally at that point, if it's not previously diagnosed via x-ray, it's not hip dysplasia. And most of the time, what I find, it's in the lumbar spine. Yes, they're having trouble sitting. Yes, they're having trouble getting up. Yes, they're having trouble jumping in the car. All of that stuff that everyone just assumes is hips is generally not, unless they were previously diagnosed with hip dysplasia. I actually had how old was he? 13-year-old in today. And dad's like, he was diagnosed with hip dysplasia, I think at age 4. So a little later, but it was seen on radiographs. And what I mean by hip dysplasia is you get bony changes in the femoral head into the hip joint. And that joint, so the ball, right, should sit in there perfectly. That's even tighter than it really is. But when you have hip dysplasia and there's a lot of movement in here and there's some bone hitting bone or some movement that shouldn't be there, causing pain, irritation, inflammation in the joint. Hip dysplasia. And of course, there's different grades of that. So Kyle says his aunt's dog does that. She's a lab, 3 years old. It's very stereotypical a lab thing, but they're not the only dogs that do get hip dysplasia or cannot sit in that perfect position. She tries to correct it, but I've seen her hips out. Yeah. So is there also other clinical signs at home? Does she, does your aunt ever say, oh, she doesn't really jump on things? Or she plays with her friends, but she usually stops after 10 minutes and everybody else is still running. Like other indications that maybe there's pain involved. What else is part of that history? And the hips may be fine, but now we're 3 and maybe our pelvis has been rotated. Maybe we don't even have the muscles built to sit straight. Like they just are so weak to do that. Plus, we're just used to it. And so, yeah, we try to straighten it out, but we don't really straighten it out, and here's your cookie, I mean, we get lazy with that too. So there's lots of levels that could be going on there. But back to hip dysplasia. A client asked about a friend of theirs. The dog was just diagnosed at 14 months, 16 months, somewhere in there. And, what can chiropractic do for that? Well, that's a really good question. Because I'm sure it runs the gamut to absolutely nothing to quite a bit. Yeah, big, powerful lab. Yeah. So if she's big and powerful and has some good thighs on her and she's building muscle, it's probably not a hip thing. All right. Yeah. Just keep an eye on it when you're over there. But hip dysplasia, absolutely nothing to a lot. So I have 2 current clients. One, I don't know if she's 9 yet, 8.5, and one he's 4 or 5 at this point. I will get to your question, Kyle. That's a good question. And they were both diagnosed as very young puppies, 8, 9 months old. And I've seen their x-rays and they were terrible, terrible hip joints. Does not look comfortable. Had pretty much the same conversation with both owners, and it was their choice to go the allopathic way and look at surgery or go the chiropractic way. And so what I was discussing with my client today about the 14-month-old dog or 16-month-old dog was this. It's never a problem to try. The previous dog's x-rays look terrible, terrible. And so I'm like, we can try this. And I'm going to get my hands on your dogs often enough, usually about in the beginning, 2 to 3 weeks. And we went to every month. Like and if we're not making headway on the pain, you're not seeing them any more comfortable. It's just, we're not getting anywhere. Back to the vet, right? For surgical options. Because there's really not a lot of anything else besides surgery. They usually do a hip replacement, or it's called an FHO, a femoral head osteotomy, where they cut off the femoral head off the femur. And so you have this hip that's, not a nice curve. It's kind of ugly, but then you don't have this femoral head anymore. You just have this bone. And so this bone is not hitting any other bone. So we're not breaking down this joint. That's a very old surgery. It's been around forever. I've seen it done very nicely. I know it sounds terrible. Cut off the femoral head. And then, like any joint, and joint stability is 80% of the muscles and tendons. And so they just kind of take over for that hip stability, and they seem to do rather well with it. These days, surgeons will kind of push for the hip replacement, right? It's prettier, but then they do pretty much, as far as I know, what they do, a metal socket is glued in, and then a metal femoral head and part of the bone is pounded into the bone, just like our hip replacements. I actually have not, trying to think if anybody has had that done that I've worked on. I don't know if that's happened. Anyway, I'm trying to be linear. It's not working so well. But either one of those options, right, we just described, we're going to put metal in here. We're going to put metal in here, or we're going to cut off that femoral head. So my point of view is there's no harm in trying chiropractic first, because if it doesn't work and you need to go do surgery, it's going to handle whatever maybe arthritic changes have built up from trying the chiropractic, or waiting a little longer to see how painful the dog is. Right? So you're going to fix whatever's going on so you can wait. The one Pyrenees mix, I honestly am thrilled with how well he's doing, because he was actually a little more concerning than the burner. And I told Mom, we can do this. We can do this for years, and you still may have to do surgery down the line. The chiropractic may not handle it all, or it may handle it for, 6 weeks, or not 6 weeks, 6 years, but then you still need to do. And again, both those surgeries can be done. Now, 13, 14, that's a different conversation. If so, I don't see any problem with trying chiropractic for hip dysplasia. And really, I ain't changing the shape of the joint. That's not what we're actually treating as chiropractors, as functional neurologists. We're looking at, how does the pelvis rotating, what muscles are firing across this joint to keep it stable, because that's the important part, right? Joints are stable depending on how well all the muscles and tendons are firing that cross that joint. And so that's what we're working on. Where's the compensation? How is the front end handling the rear end? Probably have some PT in there too. Get some exercises, get some walking in there. So all of that. But there's not really a downside to trying it. Let's put it that way. What's a good sign of good hips? Well, the sitting is one of my favorite. If your dog can sit and stand and sit and stand and sit and stand, and it's usually in a perfect sitting position, as a puppy, we're talking that age that it usually gets diagnosed, the 8 to 18 months. Running, I mean, it's really, it's kind of, let's put it this way, Kyle. You consider them good until you see something that tells you otherwise. And it was kind of what I said earlier. They don't want to play, or they're pooping out much earlier than their playmates are. Maybe And people don't think about it because if the puppy shows up this way, oh, it's just how that puppy is. Oh, they don't really like to jump on things. That's a thump in my head. Like they really should want to jump on things. My little torch he's terrible at jumping on things. His sister is like part billy goat. And so I know it's in his genes, but he's terrible at it. And so he's been checked out, he's been adjusted. And there's probably more I can do, but I don't really want him jumping on all these things. But he's at least been evaluated, right? And checked out, and he's not painful, and he's more just sloppy. So I don't know if that covers it at all. I have two more stories, and of course anyone. Oh, he's fine, Kyle. Poor guy. Mom doesn't love him, huh? Don't want to fix his jumping. I had this golden retriever client. Gosh, this is back when Dr. Jasek had her clinic. I don't even, 15 years ago. So maybe 5 years into my clinical practice. And this was probably the most annoying dog I have ever met to this day still. I remember this dog. And I remember thinking, how can people live with this dog? Because me trying to work on her, and she was 6 or 7 at this point. So she was a red golden and her face was turning white. And she would just dance and dance and dance and dance and dance and dance and move and move and dance and dance and move and move. And it was like, oh my, I go, how is she at home? Because if she just doesn't stop moving, it's just going to drive me batshit crazy at home. And they're like, no, she'll settle at home, but you never see her all 4 feet, all 4 feet, all 4 feet. I think I saw her 2 times. I don't really remember. And then they took some x-rays. And she had severe bilateral hip dysplasia that was never diagnosed. She never showed an ounce of pain. I don't know if I ever saw her sit or not, but what she did to compensate for that is that nonstop moving. I learned so much from that. It was amazing because some dogs don't show pain. They just don't stop moving. Like this dog was so annoying. So they had the money and they did bilateral hip replacements on this dog. And I met her through the office again. She never came back to see me, which would have been a really good idea, but they didn't. So, and she just walked over and said hi, like calmly, like you could see her entire nervous system was like, oh, like amazing. And so I filed that away back in the computer as to, okay, what am I looking out for on things? Fast forward to my poodle, and he's a 30-pound little substandard poodle. He came to me because he actually has no femoral head on his right hip. This didn't form, or it was injured when he was a baby. And if you hit the femoral head just right, like impact just right, it will cut off the blood supply to it and it just won't form. So we have no idea if it was genetic or whatever. So he has a natural made FHO, which I was talking about earlier. And he's very, very movie. He doesn't hold still very long. He's kind of shifty. He's very active. His metabolism is high. But I remember the golden retriever, and I remember how he might be handling some of his discomfort in his rear. And, he's on stuff and he gets adjusted and he gets massages, which he actually likes a lot better than his adjustments from his mom. And if you watch him walk, I should videotape that and show people. You would think something is wrong, but you wouldn't know what. And then when he sits square, but his butt's over here. It's like over to the side from his front end. It's very interesting. And so it can come in all different forms. So Kyle agrees. We have stairs all over the place for our dogs so they don't jump on or off things. Yeah, I mean, you have smaller dogs too. I have stairs everywhere too for the smaller dogs. So, yeah, then we can get into size, right? But that golden retriever should be able to jump on the couch. We don't want the Yorkie jumping on the couch or off the couch. Actually, down is always harder than up on the body. That repetitive down is always harder. Jessica says, my friend at work said that her German short-haired pointer is prone to hip dysplasia. Is that true? He has 3. Not the way she's saying that. It's a great question. I get where your friend's going with that. But like I was saying earlier, and you may have missed it, and so it's good to repeat it. So thank you, Jessica. Hip dysplasia later in life, bilateral hip dysplasia, we can go into unilateral. So bilateral hip dysplasia is usually diagnosed at 8 to 18 months. Now, I'm not sure what she's referring to as later in life. But if he's 3 and she's worried about that, the chiropractor actually can prevent that. Like if we, like I said, we can't change like what the socket is doing, right? We can't change that. But if we have like just the hips are a little not so great, we can prevent a lot of this hitting and causing bony changes. We can help everything else function. We can help support the joint. So inflammatory processes aren't being created. So yes, chiropractic cannot change bony changes, arthritis. I just prefer the term bony changes, but people don't know what I'm talking about. Arthritic changes. We can't change that, right? There's a bone spur there. There's scalloping of some of the vertebral bodies. Like we can't change that, but we can correct the structure so it doesn't progress as quickly, reduce the inflammatory process, and return function. I don't know if that breed is prone to hip dysplasia. I don't know. I don't know. Everyone's like, oh, they're, when you say German Shepherd, oh, the hips. I'm like, honestly, that's the last thing I think about on German Shepherds. Their hip dysplasia is about the least of their problems these days. Labradors and the sloppy sitting I always go to, but that doesn't even mean they have hip stuff. I don't know. And I think it's funny if she knows, maybe she knows the lines, and maybe she knows in the past they've had some hip dysplasia, and it's just fascinating to me that people will talk about it, know it's coming, but don't choose to do anything about it because there is stuff you could do, namely chiropractic care can really prevent a lot of stuff from occurring later in life. I don't know about the breed. I don't know. Did the beagles go to the chiropractor yet? I'm waiting. It's probably not late enough yet. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. They're young. They're not on any meds, right? Pain medication specifically. Cool. If you think they're sore or you think they're going to be a little worked up, 9 a.m., that's awesome. You could do a little CBD. But if they're nice dogs and they're happy and you can feed them, that's fine. They don't have to skip breakfast. You may want to, if you need to, get them walked beforehand because they really probably shouldn't go on much of a walk after. Usually I tell people that They usually sleep for about 2 to 4 hours, like the dead, after an adjustment. Gave them chicken backs tonight. Yeah. Are they OMAD? They only eat one meal? They sleep like the dead for 2 to 4 hours afterwards. Yeah, once a day. That's awesome. So yeah, you're golden on the eating too. That's great. They may. Oh my gosh, that's just awesome. Yeah, they're going to be cooked tomorrow. They're probably going to be out of it for quite a bit of the afternoon, and then they may wake up on fire, and you want to keep them quiet. Basically, no dog wrestling. I usually tell people if you need to entertain them to maybe give them a bully stick or something to chew on. No balls, no big long walks. If they have to go out and go potty on leash, that's fine. But they can go in the backyard if they can do it quietly. But no, I can't wait to hear about it next week. Awesome. And a massage. How'd they get so lucky? I've got my 2 pros on here who live in the same house, which is hysterical. Any questions? You could do a short walk if you need to, but I generally leave it up to the dog, and if they're kind of just kind of moving slow, just follow their lead. I wouldn't plan on, if you'd do a 2 or 3 mile walk, doing anything like that. It may just be a little stroll. And they're young, so that's probably fine. Some of my older dogs, I don't want them out there doing anything. I won't have time. Yeah, it's kind of an early appointment. They may not even really want to go on a walk. They may be a little glassy-eyed. They get a nice endorphin release, so they kind of look a little glazed over. And so they may just want to hang. It really runs the gamut, but they're pretty young, so they may wake up on what I call on fire in the afternoon. So you might have to do a little something to get them out. I don't know how much they play together. Just no roughhousing tomorrow. No playing in the backyard. Just tomorrow. Those are my rules. I'm sure that your chiro will maybe even have some other pointers for you too. They can go out one at a time, as long as we just don't want them full bore across the yard after squirrels or whatever, or birds or whatever. I just want to have a nice, relaxing day. Probiotic question. Awesome. Kyle prepares their food the night before and put the probiotics on the food. Would that enhance the probiotic benefits, being as they live and feeding off of the probiotics? Huh. That's a good question. That is a really good question. You always have the best questions, and then you stump me, and I feel bad. I know putting digestive enzymes on the night before is helpful. I have no idea. I'm not even. It's a show off. Yeah, I have no idea on that, Kyle. I have not. Yeah, I don't necessarily see. That's definitely not a problem as far as I know either. That's cute. I don't know. I guess I'll see what I can find. It might be a question for Dee Dee. All right. There we go. It's a good question. I've not heard anybody talk about it either. But it kind of makes sense. But they only feed off Well, the meat wouldn't necessarily be the prebiotic, now would it? We need more of a sugar, carbohydrate. Like, depending on what else you put in there. If it's just chicken backs, I don't know. I'll have to work on that one. It's a good question. Good question. Maybe I don't know. Yeah, got nothing on that. And at least in this 10 seconds, we'll have to take a look. I was listening to Julianne Lee with Adored Beast, and she was talking about her new probiotics. What's it called? Called Wolf? Is that what they called it? And she had come up with turkey tail, the wolf, yeah, as the prebiotic for it. So I thought that was fascinating in itself, because yes, everything else has been, although she doesn't use it, but maltodextrin and even Standard Process uses corn, which I have asked on numerous occasions, and they've always said it's just fine, but it always made me, and that was only for one of their probiotics, and that was, I'm blanking on the name of it, but it's the little wafers. Shoot. Anyway, so I thought that was fascinating. Turkey tail. So, the mushroom. Have you tried the new probiotics? Yeah, they're going to go in my next order. Of course, I did all this research about their new colloidal silver and their new probiotics right after I placed the big order, right? Did the Senior Pro and they loved it. The raw dog food Senior Pro, the beef with the chicken feet. Yeah. We have, I think I have this bully. What do I have right now? I forget. We don't have Senior right now. We do, mine loves Senior. They do so well on it with the ruminant beef, but with the chicken bones, it's easily, I think, just a little easier to digest if your dog can handle chicken. Plus all the extra stuff for the joints, right? Because, well, chicken feet are full of joints. I have I had a client come in today. So we have the vet school up at Colorado State University, CSU, and they offer a consultation to help you put together a cooked homemade diet for your dog. And she spent, I'll just go with over $400 on this. And it was highly disappointing with what they came back with. I'm not sure how it worked. I'm sure it was just like on the phone. And the dog is suffering from acid reflux. And so they wanted to lower the fat. Well, she's already eating cooked turkey, sweet potato, applesauce, and digestive enzymes in her whatever supplement she's on. I forget at the moment. And so they wanted her to switch the turkey to fish, tilapia, and do sweet potato and applesauce. And she's like, well, she's already on that. And they wanted to add in a fish oil, which I'm not a huge fan. Most of them are already rancid, and it's just the sustainability of it all. I don't do a lot of fish oil. I don't actually recommend a lot of fish oil. I'm looking at the Adored Beasts Potency. That seems amazing. And then they wanted her to put in like, what was a quarter of a teaspoon or half a teaspoon or something of corn oil. Yes, even the human grade fish oil. It's just too fragile. The bonds in fish oil are so fragile that the company can do everything right, right? Um, they can do everything right, put it in the dark bottles, but let's say the semi truck that's delivering it from A to B gets stuck on the highway and it's not refrigerated and everything just heats up in the middle of summer. That'll break the bonds. They're just so fragile that most of our fish oil is already rancid. It's just and it's just sad. And I don't have much more than that on that. I don't have like certain brands or this study or that study, but so the phytosynergy and the potency. And if you go over to Adored Beast's YouTube channel, she does a whole training on the potency. I can't say that I've followed it step by step, but this is the gist I got, just the gist. They grow the phytoplankton and then they extract something from them, and it's just the the omegas in the oil. So it's not really from a fish at all, and it's kind of lab grown, so they control all of the environment that it's in. And so, but you get nothing else but the omegas in that. It's kind of fascinating. I actually want to go back and re-listen to it. Like I said, I was just kind of catching the gist, but that can kind of takes you back to why the phytosynergy is such a, and that's also, I think they do lab grown. I don't think, they are in charge of all the environmental factors of that of the plankton that I think it's plankton. I hope I got that right, that they're growing. To make the phytosynergy. So it is sustainable and it's not the bonds aren't being broken and becoming rancid. So that's what I stick with when it comes to that. But what were you, senior pro fish oil? Oh yeah, the homemade diet. So corn oil. It was a very little bit, but what my client told me is they were worried about her fat content causing the acid reflux. And I'm like, I can tell you right now, it's not her fat content. It is simply she's having issues digesting the food in her stomach, which most of what goes on in the stomach is protein digestion. She really didn't do well and didn't like the raw. I don't know how long mom tried to work with that, honestly, and mom was definitely more comfortable with cooked, so she went back to cooked. So it's not a fat thing, and that was the other reason from going to turkey to fish. And she's like, but I don't want to feed fish all the time. I'm like, no, you don't. I mean, you want to feed small fish, and you're going to go back to the turkey, and acid reflux is made up condition. Well, yes, I mean, what it is food that is fermenting in your stomach. It's poor digestion. It's not enough HCl. It's not enough digestive enzymes because our food supply is severely lacking in all of those things, and so we have to supplement them. Oh, absolutely. Acid reflux is not a thing. It's not a thing. It's not what is actually happening. But it does sell a lot of medications. No, it's actually your food is putrefying in your stomach because it's not being digested. And then you throw on another layer on top of that and another layer on top of that. That's why some of these people that are feeding their dogs even 3 times a day, but every few hours for whatever reason that is, they're just layering and layering and layering and toxins are just building up, what's the word I want? Perpetuating leaky gut And yeah, I get where you're going with that, Kyle. Absolutely. And and one of the vet's suggestions, this was awesome, that she just keeps some milk bones in her nightstand and just hand her a milk bone at night so she doesn't have the acid reflux in the morning. I'm like, well, if you want to do that, and sometimes that works actually really well with dogs, could you not use milk bones, please? I did not see kids. I have not gotten it. I take that back. I listened to the gentleman's podcast that you recommended. Oh gosh, I don't remember his name. I listened to, because they're nice and short, so I listened to some of his. Yeah, the milk bones are the worst. Oh my God, they're awful. I'd kiss the ground. No, I don't know. Do I kiss the ground? I'm writing it down. Maybe over the holidays I can get some of that done. And so the point is over $400. Oh, and then they just basically sent her over to Balance It. And if you haven't been to that website, that'll make you cry. How they have how you put everything together was ridiculous, my point of view. And then their supplements, which I could not find the ingredients of their supplements on their website. And when I come across that for anything, it's a hard no in my world. Now, you need to show me everything that's in it, and you need to show me it here, not when I get it. So there's this whole Balance It website out there on how you can put together your dog's food for homemade, and then their supplements are designed to be heated up in cooked food. And their supplements they do not come from an animal source. What? We're feeding carnivores. Shouldn't their supplements come from an animal source? What is your source? And I couldn't find it anywhere on the website. Maybe I didn't look hard enough, but I couldn't find their ingredients. And so my best guess, since they're not going to tell me, is a bunch of synthetic vitamins that are not bioavailable to the body, can cause problems, and generally come from China. And this is what is being supported by our veterinary schools. How's it getting better than that? So, yeah, it was sad. And she spent a lot of money. Lots of money. Okay. Yes, she was talking. She did bring that up. Was she talking to me? I still haven't seen that podcast. Seen that podcast. Haha. Listen to that podcast. Okay. No, our human doctors are not much better. But the corn oil, toxic seed oils. Corn is the most GMO'd plant on the planet. It's full of glyphosate. I'm like, what? Oh, I can watch his? Okay, good. I was like, corn oil? And she's like, well, why would I add corn oil? I'm not adding. She's like, I'm not adding corn oil. That's stupid. She's like, they want me to add fish oil. So why don't I just add more fish oil in? Okay, I mean, I'm not going to, but that does make more sense, right? Corn isn't even real anymore. Like, it is probably one of the most toxic things on this planet. And talk about rancid oil. Oy. All right. Anything else? It's always fun. I love you too. It's Keisha's birthday today. She actually so Keisha helps me out. She's been helping me out for years with a lot of the emails and being supportive on like my lives. And she actually produced my radio show when I had my radio show back in the day. It was her birthday. And she's like, I'll be there if you want me to, but I really want like the whole day off. And I'm like, of course. I'm not gonna, of course, enjoy your birthday. So it's Keisha's birthday. Um, I'm so glad you look forward to it. I hope you're getting the little gems here and there. I know lately I've been talking a lot about chiropractic, but that's also information that's just not out there. And most people don't even know we exist. And it's been 20 years that I've been doing this. My birthday's on December 28th. Yeah. Too bad you're not here in the state to take advantage of that. But yeah, mine's the 28th. So I tell people I have lots of issues about the holidays. I've worked on a lot of them, but I still have some issues. Well, thank you too for being here. Any last questions, thoughts? Otherwise, we'll call it today. I think I need a shower and hop in the bed here. Oh, happy birthday, Jessica. Do you have birthday issues too, or do you love the holidays? I'm going to put you on the spot. It's not as bad as those folks that I know have birthdays like on Christmas and on New Year's, but yes, issues. Okay, she agrees. She agrees with me. All right, my dear friends, have a wonderful chiropractic appointment in the morning. Yes, here's your birthday and Christmas gift. Exactly. All in Christmas paper, right? The tree's still up. And my grandparents would forget, like almost every year as I was a kid. My mom's like, "You coming over?" And they're like, "For what?" Like, oh, goody. All right, my dear friends, I will be back next week. I will be talking to Dee Dee again on Monday. Always forgotten. Yep. And we'll just go from there. Enjoy the holiday season. And thank you so much for joining me tonight. Until next time, how much fun can you have with your animals? Have a great visit tomorrow. I'm so excited to hear about it next week. Bye.